The funniest person in the friend group is often fighting the hardest battles. Think about it. They're always the first to crack a joke, the one who turns awkward silence into laughter, the one who roasts themselves before anyone else can. But psychology says humor can be a defense mechanism. When someone grows up feeling unseen, misunderstood, or emotionally overwhelmed, they learn one powerful skill: make them laugh so they don't see you bleed. Laughter becomes armor. If everyone is smiling, no one is asking, "Are you okay?" The funny friend studies the room. They read emotions fast. They sense tension instantly, and they fix it with a joke. That's not clown behavior. That's emotional intelligence. They became experts at lightening the mood because they know what darkness feels like. Sometimes they joke about their own pain, so it sounds smaller, safer, less real. But inside, they're carrying things they don't want to burden anyone with. They are not attention seekers. They are protectors, emotional warriors who fight silent battles while making everyone else feel lighter. So next time your funniest friend makes everyone laugh, look a little closer and maybe ask them, "Are you really okay?" Sometimes the loudest laughter hides the quietest pain. Send this to the funny friend who deserves someone checking on them too. Dead eyes refer to a gaze with almost no emotional feedback. A person may speak appropriately, smile, be polite, or even appear charming, yet the eyes remain still as if looking straight through you. This phenomenon is often associated with psychopathic, narcissistic, and Machiavellian traits. Genuine emotion always activates the orbicularis oculi muscle around the eyes. When the empathic system is reduced or suppressed, smile stays confined to the lips. There's another term for this as well: shark eyes, a fixed, warmless stare with dilated pupils that appears when a person shifts into a dominant mode of action. For objectivity, it is important to assess additional concrete markers, whether the eyes are congruent with facial expressions and the content of speech. Blink rates. Slow blinking may indicate emotional suppression or an attempt to dominate, and signs of fatigue, such as sanpaku, when the white of the eye is visible above or below the iris. Those were the eyes I saw when the door opened. It was a person who was holding 10 people in a room, including someone particularly important. I can't name all the details right now. I hope you understand what I mean. I activated the psychological role I needed in order to speak human to human, not from a professional position. One of the best negotiators had become ineffective. My surprise when the supervisor left. I approached the door and spoke to that man in a human way. A few minutes later, we walked out together, and the object of his control was in my hands. After discussing the failed negotiation with him, it became clear that the issue was an inability to change psychological roles. He was acting rigidly from a position of responsibility and professional protocol, which prevented real contact with the person on the other side. At home later, my hands were shaking, but in that moment, emotions were not an option.
Psychology says some of the loneliest people are the ones who understand everyone too well. Not because they have no one around them, but because their mind never stops noticing. They catch the shift in your tone, the delayed reply, the smile that doesn't quite reach your eyes. While everyone else moves on, they replay the moment, trying to understand what changed. They don't just hear words, they read energy. They don't just feel emotions, they absorb them. And that kind of awareness is exhausting. Because when you spent your life learning how to read a room, predict tension, and stay one step ahead of pain, you stop knowing how to relax around people. This is often rooted in hypervigilance, a survival pattern formed in environments where emotional safety was never consistent. So now, even in calm moments, the body stays alert. The hardest part is that they often blame themselves. Instead of thinking something feels off, they think, "Did I do something wrong?" And over time, that turns into a quiet kind of loneliness. Not because no one is there, but because they never fully feel safe enough to just be there too.
Ever notice how you start distancing yourself from everyone when life feels heavy? You stop replying, stop talking, and tell yourself you just need space. But deep down, you're not avoiding people, you're avoiding being misunderstood. Psychology calls this emotional withdrawal. A defense mechanism your mind uses when it feels unsafe or overwhelmed. It's your brain's way of saying, "I need to protect myself before I can connect again." But here's the thing. Isolation can trick you into thinking no one cares, when in reality, people just don't know how to reach you. You start confusing peace with loneliness and numbness with healing. But healing doesn't always happen in silence. Sometimes it happens when you let yourself be seen again. This shows you're not cold or distant. You're someone who's been strong for too long, finally learning it's okay to let people in.
Did you know that laughing at disabled people is actually a sign that you are highly intelligent? According to psychology, if you laugh at people struggling with disabilities, you aren't just a heartless asshole. You are a highly intelligent heartless asshole. Psychologists have studied something called benign violation theory, which basically states that humor comes from breaking a rule. And since people with higher intelligence tend to spot social rules and patterns faster than others, they also notice when those rules can be bent in unexpected ways. That's why the cleverest people sometimes laugh at things that society says shouldn't be funny. They're seeing the incongruity, not endorsing the cruelty. This is also supported by the superiority theory in humor. Highly intelligent people love to test boundaries of what's socially acceptable, partly because their brains crave novelty. They're not laughing at the disability. They're laughing at the absurdity of a situation in society labels off limits. In other words, your brain might be playing a kind of high-level social chess. The next time that someone tells you that you are a horrible person for laughing at someone with a disability, just know that you are experiencing humor on a deeper level than they could comprehend.
If you can read everyone's emotions but yours, you're not broken. You're trained. In clinical psychology, this pattern is called alexithymia, the difficulty identifying your own internal emotional states. It often develops in people who grew up needing to track other people's emotions so closely that they never learned to track their own. So your nervous system became a precision instrument pointed outward. You can name what your friend is feeling from one text. You can sense the tension in a room before anyone speaks. But when someone asks how you feel, the answer is genuinely missing. Not hidden, missing. This isn't emotional avoidance. It's emotional translation gone one direction. The work isn't forcing yourself to name feelings faster. It's turning the lens inward, gently, in safe moments, and letting yourself find out what you have been carrying. You are not behind. You are learning a language you were never taught. Follow for more.
The funniest person in the friend group?
Why the friend who roasts you the most is usually the one who likes you the most. Sounds wrong at first, because they're the one making fun of you, calling things out and never letting anything slide. But notice when they actually do it. It's never random. It's always when they know you'll react, which means they're paying attention to you more than most people. And that's where it gets interesting. Roasting someone isn't just humor, it's familiarity. You need to know how far you can go, what will land, and what won't cross the line. Most people don't take that risk unless they're comfortable with you. But here's the part people miss. They also watch your reaction more than anyone else, almost like they're testing the limit without saying it directly. And if they ever go too far, they're usually the first to adjust or switch tone. Someone who actually dislikes you wouldn't care enough to do that. Over time, you'll notice something else too. They'll defend you in subtle ways, not loudly, not obviously, but just enough to balance everything out. Because the roasting isn't about putting you down, it's their way of staying connected without being serious. And the reason it feels confusing is because it looks like disrespect on the surface, but it's actually comfort. Every friend group has someone like this, the one who roasts you the most, but somehow is always around. And if someone instantly came to mind, send this to them, but don't be surprised if they roast you again.
Some people don't just tolerate their bruises, they stare at them, trace them, and feel a strange comfort in their presence. It's not that they enjoy being hurt, but that the bruise becomes proof that the pain they feel inside actually exists. Psychologically, when someone carries invisible emotional wounds, seeing a visible mark on their skin can bring validation, a reminder that their suffering is real, not imagined. The bruise becomes something tangible, something they can understand and control, unlike the chaos of what's happening inside. For some, it's a quiet symbol of survival, evidence that they've endured something and are still here to see it heal. It's not about glorifying pain, but about the human need to make sense of it. When emotions feel too heavy to express, the body sometimes becomes the storyteller. Healing begins when you realize that your pain doesn't need proof to be believed. It's already valid, even if no one else can see it.
The funniest person in the friend group?
What if I told you people who cry during movies are actually the strongest mentally? Sounds backwards, right? Most people think crying means weakness, that it means you're too emotional, too sensitive. But psychology says it's the opposite. People who cry during movies have something rare, high emotional awareness. Their brain doesn't just watch the story, it feels it. Every emotion, every loss, every moment. And instead of suppressing it, they allow it. That takes strength, because most people are trained to shut emotions down, to hide, to disconnect. But the ones who feel deeply, they process emotions faster. They release stress naturally. They don't carry it for years. Studies show people who express emotions are actually more resilient under pressure. So crying during a movie isn't weakness. It means your mind is open enough to feel and strong enough to let go. Real strength isn't hiding emotion, it's having the courage to feel it. Follow for more psychology that changes how you...
A man goes quiet after you call him annoying. Psychology says it's usually not because he got mad. It's because when a man gets called annoying, it kills the side of him that was just trying to have fun. So in that moment, the energy he was bringing completely shuts off. And instead of being playful and joking the way he was before, he starts to pull back and become more reserved. Most people think he's overreacting or being sensitive, but they don't realize that was him being comfortable and expressing a side of himself that doesn't come out around everyone. So when that gets shut down, the mood changes for him instantly, and now he starts thinking that maybe he's doing too much, so he tones himself down. He becomes quieter, more nonchalant, and more closed off, not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't want to be seen as annoying again. And over time, even when he wants to be himself again, it just doesn't come out, because now he's more aware of how it's being received. And that's what makes him start to act more nonchalant around you. So next time, don't shut down the side of him that's just trying to have fun. If this made sense, comment true.
If you treat yourself worse than you'd treat someone you love after a mistake, according to psychology, that's called maladaptive self-criticism. It usually develops in environments where mistakes felt emotionally unsafe, so your brain learned to attack itself first as protection. Over time, the inner critic becomes automatic. Every mistake triggers shame, harsh self-talk, and overthinking before you've even processed what happened. But the environment that created that response may no longer exist. The inner critic may have protected you once, now it's just hurting you. You are allowed to speak to yourself with compassion, too. Follow for more.
Why is it so hard for student relationships to last? A lot of people say young love doesn't work out, but what they rarely tell you is the most damaging part of those relationships isn't how early they started. It's the process of growing up. Back then, love is what psychology calls pure projection. You fall for the person who brings you milk in the morning, not their height, their degree, or their family background. It's one of the rare moments in life when your soul is completely transparent. That's why those feelings hit so deeply and stay with you for a lifetime. So why don't most of them make it? Because from 17 to 25, you're going through what psychologist Erik Erikson described as the stage of identity reconstruction. During this phase, your values and worldview go through a complete transformation. Just because you were aligned at 17 doesn't mean you'll still be on the same wavelength at 27. One of you might be evolving rapidly while the other stays the same. Or you're both growing, but in entirely different directions. That gap, the mismatch in growth timing, is the real reason relationships start to crack.
Did you know trauma survivors develop what scientists call supernatural pattern recognition abilities? Their brains become so hyper-tuned to danger that they can detect threats others completely miss. Chronic hypervigilance rewires neural pathways to process micro-expressions, voice tones, and behavioral patterns with extraordinary accuracy. They can instantly sense when someone is lying, predict relationship outcomes within minutes of meeting people. They detect manipulation tactics before they're even fully executed. This explains why trauma survivors often seem psychic about people's intentions. Their threat detection systems have been neurologically enhanced through pure survival necessity, but this superpower comes at a devastating cost. Constant mental exhaustion from scanning every environment for danger, complete inability to trust positive situations or genuine kindness. The same brain that protects them also traps them in endless fear. The key to healing isn't losing these abilities, it's learning to distinguish between real threats and trauma brain false alarms. Your hypervigilance saved you once. Now you can choose when to use it.
What time do you usually wake up? And psychology says the time you wake up reveals more about you than you think. People who wake up before 6 a.m. are not just early risers. Studies show they carry guilt, responsibility, a weight on their chest that doesn't let them sleep longer. People who wake up after 9 a.m. are not lazy. Their mind runs so deep at night that sleep becomes the only escape they have. And the ones who wake up at 3 a.m., psychology calls this the hour of emotional overload. Your body woke itself up because something inside is unresolved, unspoken, unhealed. No alarm needed. Pain is punctual. So tell me honestly in the comments, what time do you wake up? And how long have you been carrying something you haven't told anyone?
What if the reason modern relationships feel so confusing isn't love? It's dopamine. Psychologists say many modern relationships are built around something called a dopamine reward loop. Your brain releases dopamine when something feels new, exciting, or unpredictable. That's why the early stage of dating can feel intoxicating. The mystery, the texting, the emotional highs and lows. Your brain starts chasing that feeling. But here's where the confusion begins. Dopamine is the chemical of excitement, not the chemical of lasting love. Real connection actually grows through safety, consistency, and emotional stability. But when someone becomes addicted to the dopamine rush of novelty, calm, stable love can start to feel boring. And that's how many people end up trapped in a cycle of situationships, short-term sparks, and emotional confusion, while mistaking dopamine highs for real connection.
The funniest person in the friend group?
In psychology, one of the most dangerous symptoms isn't sadness. It's when you stop feeling anything at all. In psychology, this is called anhedonia. You laugh, but it doesn't reach you. You achieve things, but they don't move you. You know something should feel good, but inside, it stays empty. This happens when your nervous system has been overloaded for too long, so it shuts emotions down, not out of indifference, but out of self-protection. Too much stress, too much disappointment, too many battles no one ever saw. Eventually, your system says, I can't feel this anymore, so I'd rather feel nothing. This isn't laziness, it's not ingratitude, and it's not a character flaw. It's a sign your body has been stuck in survival mode for too long. The dangerous part is, many people don't even realize they've gone emotionally numb. They think they've just become more realistic, more logical, more detached. But the truth is, you're exhausted on a level that doesn't show on the outside. Healing doesn't start with motivation, not with pressure, not with pull yourself together. It starts the moment you allow yourself to feel again, slowly, without forcing it, without expectations. Because emotions don't disappear because they're gone.
You wrap, the mind enters a state called flow, a mental space where time dissolves and thought becomes rhythm. According to psychology and neuroscience, this happens when the prefrontal cortex, the region linked to control and self-criticism, slows its activity. In that moment, creativity emerges unfiltered. The brain stops overanalyzing, and emotion takes the lead. Each verse becomes a pulse of identity. Rhythm regulates breathing, aligns heart rate, and stabilizes the nervous system. The brain releases dopamine and endorphins, generating a deep sense of clarity and relief. It's not just expression, it's a recalibration of emotion through sound. Freestyling pushes this even further. The brain improvises in real time, connecting language, memory, and emotion at extraordinary speed. What feels spontaneous is actually a complex neural choreography between chaos and control. Neurologically, rapping is catharsis. Psychologically, it's self-definition. It transforms pain into pattern, tension into timing, and thought into movement. Because when you rap, you're not escaping reality, you're reshaping it, one rhyme at a time.
Have you ever noticed you can't fully hate someone even after they hurt you? Like part of you still understands them. Psychology calls this cognitive empathy. It's when you don't just see what someone did, you understand why they did it. And that's powerful. But here's the part no one talks about. It can feel like a curse, because when you understand people deeply, you also see their pain, the childhood wound behind their attitude, the fear behind their distance, the insecurity behind their actions, and suddenly you're stuck. Too aware to stay angry, but still hurting inside. So you carry it quietly, smiling on the outside while your mind keeps explaining what your heart is trying to heal from. But here's the truth. Just because someone makes sense doesn't mean they deserve access to you. You can understand someone and still walk away.
That's not cold, that's emotional intelligence with boundaries. Send this to someone who understands everyone but forgets to protect themselves.
Have you ever noticed that the moment you hug a specific person, your shoulders drop and you let out a deep breath you didn't know you were holding? Or maybe you suddenly feel sleepy and heavy around them. You aren't bored, and you aren't just tired. You are experiencing a biological phenomenon called co-regulation. You see, for most of the day, your body is quietly fighting a war. You are in survival mode, alert, tense, and guarding yourself against the world. You are wearing invisible armor, but the moment that person walks into the room, your nervous system picks up their energy and sends a signal to your vagus nerve. The war is over. You can rest now. Their presence literally switches your body from fight or flight to rest and digest. Feeling sleepy around someone is actually the highest form of trust. It means your body feels safe enough to shut its eyes and drop its guard. It is biological proof that they are your home. Send this to the person who makes your nervous system feel safe.